Undoubtedly, the greatest pain a parent could ever have would be to see one of their own children pass before them. Today is the first of two podcasts where we're going to talk to a parent who did lose one of their children at an early age. In today's podcast, you're going to hear from Shane Robbins. He and his wife, Christa, lost their son, Gaige, at the tender age of 19 years old. But what Shane and Christa did for their son, Gaige, in that last year is absolutely incredible, making his final wishes come true. That of parachuting from an airplane, but also meeting the actor, Adam Sandler. And what you'll hear in this podcast is so much more than just a casual meet, but an incredible friendship that grew between Gaige and Adam. I hope you enjoy this week's episode of Beyond the Summit, and I hope that you go to the podcast on either Spotify or Apple Podcast, follow the podcast, and listen to all the episodes that we've had so far. Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome to Beyond the Summit, where we journey into the heart of human potential. I am your host, David Wolf. Here we will engage with extraordinary minds, unlock secrets of success, and discover what fuels happiness in our extraordinary guests. Prepare to be inspired, to grow, and to see beyond your own summit. All right. That's 4 times. You're only supposed to do it 3 times. All right.
Hey.
I was, just before we started, I was looking on Facebook, and I saw this little clip came up. It says, Disney World opened its doors 50 years ago, October 1st. So, no, that had been 52 years ago. 53 years ago. October 1st, 1971, 52 years ago. And that's always a good memory for me, because when I was, actually, I'm going to show you a picture here. When I was 9 years old, Mom took her 4 children. That little guy there, he's 8 or 9 years old. That's me, okay? So that's my mother with her 4 children. My brother standing behind my mom, my sister, my older sister, and then my sister Becky, who is in like a burnt red, burgundy sort of dress behind me. You know, it's one of those...
Right.
It's supposed to look like it's an old-time picture and that we're standing on the back of a caboose. And so that's always a good memory. So we were actually there for the 10th anniversary of Disney World. And now they're 50 plus years later.
Wow.
I was back in 1. And that's a good lead into the show. You know, we've had Shane, we've had some really tough conversations already in this very young show. We've talked last week in an incredibly impactful, emotional podcast and conversation with Anthony Vella, talking about his time in the military and him being a combat medic and the things that he had to witness, his PTSD, with same thing with Todd Scandrett and the loss of a wife, and Jillian Wintermute talked about getting Crohn's disease at an early age. Tim Gaskins talked about the moment he found out he had cancer, and that kind of leads us into this week. And Shane and his wife, Christa, had to endure something that we pray nobody else has to endure, which is the loss of a child. And that's why Shane's here today to talk about the loss of his child and his life since then, and any positive impact he's been able to make because of that. And while I hope to never know what it's like, nor can I even fathom the pain that it must cause. Since 1982, I've watched my own mother change since the loss of my sister Becky. And originally, Shane, we were going to have my mother Barbara on this show and have both of you talking about this topic. But, you know, she's 84 years old, and you know, I'd like to say that as you get older, the challenge of technology becomes more difficult. But in your case, it starts at an early age, I guess.
Yeah, right.
You had some at least, I think, logged in.
Oh, I had so much problems this morning. For whatever reason, my laptop just did not want to accept my password for the opening my laptop, and I went to my other laptop, and it won't even turn on. Now, I get 2 laptops down, and I'm like, okay, this has been over an hour and a half that I have been fighting to try to get online this morning. And of course, Dave has to use an app on the computer that doesn't allow phone usage. Just killed that.
High quality technology on this show, my friend.
Yeah. So I went in and asked my wife, I was like, where's your iPad? She's like, it's in there. I'm like, all right, cool. I go in, go to turn it on, I go, I don't know what her password is. I've never even been on this thing. Apparently, it's same password for all our laptops. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Went in, I had the cap lock off. It wouldn't even come on. I was like, this is not working. I'm like, oh my God. And so now I'm frustrated. Then I finally get on with you and I can't hear you. You can hear me just fine. I can't hear you. Was that my fault, Dave?
No, I had my microphone turned away from my face. And
I'm trying to push the volume up button past infinity, and Dave's over there with his microphone turned sideways, and I'm just sweating up a storm going, why is this not working? Why is this not working?
That's right. So, but as far as my mom, I know she still wants to do the show, and it's been, it was a struggle for her to say yes. But, as we talk more and more about these challenges that we face in life, that people have faced in life, and going beyond the summit and overcoming them, she knows that there's other people out there just like you do who need to hear these stories, because at some point of their life, either they themselves will go through challenges similar, or they'll know someone that's going through a similar challenge. And by hearing that you're not alone out there, it definitely helps. It definitely helps.
Yes.
So Mom will be on at some point, hopefully in the near future. She lives about 4 hours away from me. So at that point, I'll get her all squared away with the technology, and we'll have part 2 of this topic. So Shane, if you don't mind, would you just talk to us a little bit about your son, Gaige, and tell us what it was like and all that.
All right. So my son Gaige was my firstborn, and well, my wife and I's firstborn. She gets mad at me because I always say my son, even though she's standing there. She's like, isn't it our son? Anyways, so our son Gaige was born in '96, and I had a whole new life ahead of me. I had to become a real man and take care of real father responsibilities, which my wife and I did together very well. He was just from just a little child. He was always a caring kid. And when people die, everyone's like, "Oh, he was such a nice person." Blah blah blah. This is so true to his way of life. They were teachers in school that never had him as a student, but knew who he was because he just was the kid that cared about everybody. If a teacher was having a bad day, he would pick up on that and make sure that teacher had a great day. Same thing with students. And we're talking as early as elementary school all the way up to high school. He always wanted to make people happy. He was a little bit of a class clown. He might have got that from me. I'm not sure. He played sports. I played football my whole life and wanted him to just be a dominant player on the football field. And he just wasn't. He was just so, like, he would be the one helping the teammate or the other team up off the ground. The kid would get hit so hard because he wouldn't hit back. And I'm like, son, why are you not knocking these heads off? And he's like, I'm not mad yet. And it would take almost the entire game of him just getting pushed over, knocked down. And finally he'd come out of this little, in quotes, air quotes here, being soft and start dropping people. And I'm like, where has this been the whole game? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I don't really like to feel that way. So all of a sudden he decides he wants to try wrestling. The one sport that I just refused to do in high school was wrestle. And this kid would walk out on the mat and absolutely dominate his opponent each and every time. And he ended up going to state. Actually, I think he went to state all 3 years of high school. In his senior year, he went up to 5 pounds more than his weight class and got, can't remember if it was 12th or 14th in the state of Florida for 5 pounds above his weight class, which when it comes to wrestling, you want to be as light as you can so you can wrestle the smallest weight class that you can. And he did 5 above. And each and every time he'd beat somebody on the mat and he'd put his hand down and say, good match, whatever. And the other teams, the other schools would come over and hang out with him because he was just such a nice kid. It was awesome. And then he graduated high school, and I really wanted the best for him. Well, my wife and I really wanted the best for him, and we talked him into going to the military. And so shortly after graduating high school, you've got a kid that's 18 years old at the top of his health and, just got life ahead of him, goes to the military. He's there for, I want to say within the first 3 weeks on the morning runs, they would have to weigh down his backpack. And I think they went up to 35 or 40 pounds on his backpack so the drill sergeants could keep up with him because he was just running in circles. The old 90s cartoon with the little dog and the big dog, and the little dog's like, where are we going, Spike? Where are we going, Spike? And he's just running in circles around the big dog. That was my son. And they got so mad at it. Like, they couldn't keep up with him. So they started weighing his pack down. Well, about a week or so after that, he ended up getting this mass in his neck. And they took him to the infirmary and gave him a shot of, I want to say steroids. I don't remember. And the thing almost went away, like completely. You couldn't even see it. So after that, he couldn't hardly run. He couldn't do any push-ups. He couldn't do any pull-ups, nothing. So they medically discharged him and sent him home. Told him, come back when you get all better, what have you, and we'll be more than happy to take you back. Well, about a week after he got home, this thing just literally grew overnight into just huge ball on the front of his throat. So my wife's like, hey, you need to come up to my work. We'll get you x-rays, all this stuff. And she's like, okay. All right, my son Gaige is like, okay. So my wife calls me and says, hey, Gaige is over getting x-rays now. You need to come up and check out his neck. This is crazy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I show up. I see him from across the room. When I say across the room, it's a corridor where they have like almost like a food court, if you will, and a bunch of doctors' front desks. I could see this thing from across the corridor. He's not even a quarter way across it. I could see this mass in his neck. And I'm like, what? And I said, son, can you breathe? He's like, yeah, I can breathe just fine. And I'm like, how? This thing is just, it's almost the size of a small tennis ball, if you will, on his front of his throat. So they sent him to the ER. We went to the ER. We seen an ear, nose, and throat doctor. They said, oh, well, we'll give you some steroids. And the steroids, again, made it shrink to almost not even noticeable. So they said, we're going to schedule you for surgery, and we'll take out your lymph node. It's probably just a lymph node that is going bad on you. So we'll take them out. You'll take some medicine the rest of your life. You'll be fine. Like, okay. Well, they scheduled this thing out for a month and a half, 2 months out. Don't ask me why. It wasn't done right away. And each day he'd come out and it'd be either bigger or smaller. Like it just grew however it wanted. And one day we all went, my wife and I went to work. My daughter went to school, and Gaige was home alone, and this thing decided to blow up in his neck to get even bigger, and he couldn't breathe. So my phone that day rang one time, and then like he called it and then hung up, and I didn't know what it was about. Well, I get alerts on my security cameras that someone's out front of my house, and I see my son standing out there in his boxers, gasping for air. I want you to know, as a parent, I'm seeing this, and I'm just like, holy crap. So I'm rushing home, watching him the whole time, and then I see the ambulance pull up, him walk into the back of the ambulance on his own. And after talking to the paramedics later, they said as soon as he walked in and laid on the gurney, he passed out. So, I'm watching all this go down. I couldn't see inside of the ambulance, but they intubated him. They took him over to this other hospital that's closer. And when we got there, I was like, this place is not going to be able to take care of my son. So we had him stabilized. And then, of course, at this point, he's intubated. And all he wanted to do is kept pulling this tube out of his throat. And, hold his hands down and go, son, you can't do that. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, he's in and out of realizing what's going on. So every, 10, 15 seconds, I have to remind him not to pull on that tube because it's helping him breathe. And he's like, oh, okay, give me the thumbs up. And then he'd go back to sleep. And then he'd wake up uncomfortable and try to pull the tube. And I finally called my wife and said, I can't do this by myself. You need to get here. She's like, I'm on my way. Time she got there, we had already got a hold of the doctor from the ER who's expecting him. They're getting ready to do surgery, whatever. Now, at this point, we had no idea it was cancer. We only knew that it was what we thought was a lymph node that was going bad on him. So they go in for surgery, and they remove the left side of his left lymph node, and then go over to the right side and realize this is not a lymph node, it is cancer. And this cancer has woven itself through arteries, muscle around his voice box, around his esophagus. It's everywhere. The only thing it didn't do was go up. Like everything, it seemed like it was just growing left, right, and downward. So we were in the waiting room waiting for the surgery to be over, and the doctor come in and said, can we talk? I need to talk to you too. So we go into this little room, and I don't know if you guys know, but that little room is nothing good. There's no good news comes to that little room. Remember little room, because the end of this story, there's a little room. So we go into this room, and he's like, hey, we removed his left lymph node, and I went to go to remove the right side, and he's just ate up with cancer in his neck. And I was like, what? How do you go from being 14th in the state of Florida wrestling and being in the top shape of your life, and now this kid is breathing through a tube? So he asked if we wanted to debulk it so he could have some breathing, or just leave the tube in and not mess with it. My wife and I opted for the debulking so that he wouldn't have a tube in to breathe. And they went in, finished everything up. We go into his room. He wakes up, and I just looked at him. I said, son, you got cancer. He goes, yeah, I kind of figured. He goes, it's okay. We can beat this.
What a positive attitude he has. His whole life. Sounds like this young man is just remarkable.
So doctor comes in, and I guess from down the hall, we're only talking maybe 5 minutes since I told Gaige that he had cancer. Then the doctors and nurses hear us laughing coming out of the room, like full on laughing. And it was Gaige making light of the situation. He was just telling jokes, stuff that he thought he saw while he was in surgery. like they always have the stories. Oh, well, I was out and I saw angels. But he was like, oh, Dad, I saw other things. It was hot down here. Like, he was just telling jokes and just trying to make everything easier on us. So we go to start doing chemo, and he does 6 weeks of chemo. Now, I will tell you my son always had somewhat of short hair, and we had talked about all the side effects to chemo, losing your hair, just whatever, just feeling sick all the time, feeling gross. And he's like, all right, no problem. And so about second week, I think it was, or third week, he comes out of his bedroom. He's like, Dad, I'm losing all my hair. And I was like, son, I told you, this is one of the side effects. He's like, yeah, I know. He goes, but it's literally just falling out. And I was like, all right, go in the bathroom and shave your head or whatever, clip your hair or whatever. And I tell you what, to this day, I regret that, not going in with him. He was fine with it, but for me personally, it killed me not to be there for him for that. So that was my only regret during this, because going through this process, because I should have been there, because he would have been there for me, even though my head shaved already. But, I'm saying, he would have been there. I know he would have, and I let him down. Anyways, we're going to get through this, Dave.
You feel like you let him down with that.
Why?
Yes.
You always see, like on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, you always see people going in and shaving their loved one's head or whatever. Like they're always shaving the mom's hair, and then everyone else shaves their hair. Not necessarily I was planning on shaving my head, but just be there for him, the support. And I don't feel I was. So I regret that. And I'm trying not to cry, Dave. Just so you know, this part kills me.
Well, listen, first of all, and I haven't said this yet, but I really appreciate you sharing this story with everyone, and you and Christa both.
Yes. So he ends up doing the 6 weeks of radiation, and everything was non-existent. You couldn't see with the naked eye. You couldn't see any swelling. He could breathe just fine. His talking went back to normal. He had a very raspy talk when the cancer was around his vocal cords and stuff. And so we get done, and we go in and talk to the doctor, and he's like, hey, we're going to go ahead and do radiation now. We're like, what do you mean? It's all gone. He goes, no. He goes, there's another part that's growing during the radiation. I'm sorry, during the chemo. So now we got to hit that with radiation. So I was like, okay. So this kid goes, and he's like, all right, Dad, no big deal. I got half of this beat. Let's go get the other half. And he literally is skipping out the doctor's door to go to radiation. Like, he's like, all right, he's going to go get an oil change on his car. He's just like, let's go. I was like, son, they got to set this all up, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what we got to do, but there's not just walk in and get taken care of. So they do the whole radiation thing. And at the end of, I think he did 6 or 8 treatments. And at the end of that, the mass on his neck showed back up during all this radiation. So this goes on for a grand total of 10 months. From the day the cancer showed up till the day my son passed was 10 months and a few days. This cancer is called Burkitt's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and there's about 300 cases a year in the United States. And there's only 3 or 4 different ways of getting it, which have been to a third world country, which he had never been, have HIV, which he didn't have malaria, which he never got or had, and there was a 4th one. I can't remember what the 4th one is. But during when he went to boot camp, we got his medical records, and every vaccination that he had as a child, he got again. He got malaria vaccination, and he got a bunch of other stuff. So we have pinpointed where he got his cancer from. And if we go back to what I just said, there's 300 cases a year in the United States. and 3 other people in his platoon, same platoon, died of the same thing.
Oh, no.
So, anybody wants to argue with me about that, we can have that discussion. I just wanted to point that out. Anyways, back to my son. We went over to Tampa. We did actually start. Let me backtrack. I'm sorry. While we were at Holmes Regional Medical Center, Gaige started we started a GoFundMe page. And we raised $3,000 to cover his out-of-pocket medical expenses for my insurance. And of course, January 1st, a month and a half later, it's a new year. So there's a new $3,000 copay that needs to be paid, which I think is totally just wrong. But so we raised another $3,000. And then I got this idea because Gaige was just constantly just positive about everything. He would get told that this treatment didn't work. He's like, all right, what's next? We got this, no problem. So I started this Facebook page supporting Gaige and kind of shared everything that had to do with him, the money that we raised, how much we raised. We started these shirts. I wear lime green for Gaige. We had a company that's here locally in town. So they'll do the shirts. We just had to pay for the material, and they wouldn't charge us to do the shirts. And we're talking, our first order was 850 shirts sold out in 2 days. And then we ordered, I think, a little over 3,000 shirts a second order and sold out in less than a week.
Wow.
Now, every time we would post something on Facebook, and I linked the page to my son's page, because a lot of times, at nighttime, we would go back to the hotel. They wouldn't let us stay the night or whatever. And he was bored. But he would go through and read all these comments from all these people he had never met, people he's never talked to, don't know. They don't know him. They just know his story. And their stories were, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was depressed. I'm looking at your story, realizing my life could be a lot worse, and you were still so positive and giving people words of encouragement during all of this. I mean, he had blisters so big on his neck from the radiation and could barely talk. And he's trying to go live, or not live, but make a video to tell one person that he read in a comment that they're having a bad day, wanted to say something to them to make them feel better. Like, genuinely a freaking good guy, and cared about other people. So somebody we asked them a bucket list thing, which is a parent asking your child what a bucket list thing is, just in case this goes south, is probably, it ain't good. It ain't easy. They said he wanted to do skydiving. He wanted to meet Adam Sandler and do something else. I don't remember what it was. My wife has a memory of an elephant. She never forgets nothing. But I said, oh, well, skydiving we can do. I said, you got cancer. Yeah, I don't know. You don't have the cure for cancer. You're never going to meet Adam Sandler. You know what I mean? Like, it's just no way. So a friend of mine said, Shane, have your boy at the airport on this day. I'm paying for him to go skydiving. I was like, awesome. So I had my wife couldn't make it. Between already taking off work so much and everything, she just couldn't take the day off to go be with us this day. But my daughter was there. My son had no idea. He thought we were going to go pick up a smoker, like a wood burner smoker, and I needed his muscles. This cancer kid's muscles. Like, he was so weak at this point. He's like, Dad, I don't know what I could do for you. I was like, moral support, buddy, moral support. And he's just like, all right, I'll help you out. We pull into the airport, and he goes, is the smoker at the airport? And then this guy rushes up to him as he opens the door, and it's the news camera guy with a camera in his face. And he's like, Gaige, did you have any idea you're going skydiving today? And of course, you know how kids embarrass you by saying things. He says a word on out loud that you can't say here or on the news. So there was a little beep. Are you talking about? And they're like, you're skydiving. And he looks at me. He's like, are you kidding me? And I was like, yeah, let's go. So they took him up, and everyone jumped. And I counted the people going in. I counted how many parachutes, and I'm like, oh, he chickened out. Because there was one parachute short. I was like, oh, he didn't go. He chickened out. And I was just like, oh my goodness, he chickened out. All of a sudden the chute opens up, and they come in and land. And actually, Dave, you can find that on my Facebook, that whole thing. But he comes in and lands, and he's just as happy as he could be. And we drove home, and I don't think he said 2 words. He just looked up at the sky and smiled the whole way. And you could just see him tapping his fingers, and he's just like, he was alive. You know, he just had the rush of this thing, and he was just enjoying it. And I was so happy for him. So they started this hashtag Gaige meets Adam Sandler or something, and they started it on this this Facebook page. I don't know if you've ever trended or know anybody that's trended on Facebook, but Gaige's story trended for like a week and a half solid on Facebook, which is pretty hard to do. Like everyone's feed saw his story. So I don't know how it happened. So-and-so knows so-and-so that knows so-and-so that talked to Adam Sandler, and Adam Sandler said he'd call Gaige at the hospital. So Adam Sandler's, I call her his handler. Her name's Judith. She called me. She's like, Shane, what's going on? I'm like, hey, you know, Gaige is sick, and he wants to talk to Adam Sandler. He wants to meet him, but I mean, right now he just finished up a 96-hour chemo treatment. So for 96 hours, they just pumped him full of chemo stuff, and it was really horrible. And it was, I guess, bad timing, if you will, on Adam Sandler's part for calling him, which I'm greatly appreciative he did, but Gaige couldn't talk. It was like just fire in his throat. So the hospital room phone rang, and I answered it, and he's like, hey, and of course, you know, the iconic voice of Adam Sandler. And I was like, holy crap, hey.
Time out. Adam Sandler has a couple different iconic voices. Or like a dash.
Yeah.
Or he could talk like himself.
I'm gonna get to that.
That phone.
Yeah. No, when I picked it up and he's like, hey, can I speak to Gaige? I knew exactly who it was, like instantly. And I was like, hold on, please. Yeah, let me put Adam Sandler on hold because I'm somebody. And and I was like, Gaige, it's Adam Sandler. He wants to talk to you. And Gaige's like eyes got real big, and his throat was so sore. And I gave him the phone, and he's like, hello. And this real raspy, sore, just absolutely sore throat. And I hear Gaige talking to him. I see tears coming out of his eyes because he's in so much pain, but he doesn't want to pass the opportunity to talk to Adam Sandler. And finally, Gaige just gives me I'm done, I can't talk. So I grab the phone from him, and I pick the phone up to my ear, and I hear Adam just talking about what's going on on set of whatever movie he's at or whatever. And I was like, hey, Adam, I was really sorry. And I said, the chemo's messed with his throat. He can't talk. I'm really sorry. But Gaige thanks you, and we all thank you for calling. Greatly appreciate it. He's like, oh, okay, thanks. And I hung up. And I was in the phone call. Well, the phone rings right back. And I answered, and he's like, I didn't get to say goodbye to Gaige. I was like, what? Sorry, I hung up on you, Mr. Sandler. Because apparently I did. So I gave him the phone, and I said, Gaige, you don't have to say nothing. Just, you know, Adam wants to say bye to you or whatever. So then all happened. I hung up the phone, didn't think nothing of it. A couple of days later, we get word that we have to go. We've been back and forth from Moffat over in Tampa to Holmes Regional here. And the last time we went to Holmes Regional, after we'd gotten back from Tampa, they had told us that they're done. They don't have any other, Tampa has no other treatments for Gaige's cancer. So we came back here, and when we went to the oncologist, his oncologist wasn't there, but they had a fill-in doctor. And the fill-in doctor said, well, you're 18 years old. You're 19 years old by this point. You're an adult. There's nothing we can do from here except for keep you comfortable in the hospital until the disease takes you. Wanting to jump over and choke this guy for like, that's not the way to say it. You know what I mean? Like, you could have said, hey, we've tried all these options and nothing works. We got to find something else. Give this kid some kind of hope. In this instant of hearing this is what I thought. And my son looked at him and goes, I don't want to die. He goes, well, unless your parents can find a treatment somewhere else that's going to work, this is what's going to happen. So we left there, went to the hospital, and admitted him into the hospital. And my wife, bless her heart, dude, she got on that computer. She talked to people from Germany, every state, Canada, United States. If somebody would answer an email or a phone call, which, by the way, phone calls are expensive. Cell phone calls are real expensive, but it didn't really matter. We're trying to save our kid's life. And finally, we got to Texas, and they accepted that they have a treatment out there that had a real high cure rate. So we made
That was in.
What's that?
You said that was in Texas?
Yeah, it's
Was that
MD
Anderson?
Anderson. Yeah,
Exactly where Tim Gaskins on the previous episode. That's where he goes and has been going for years. The best.
So we make plans. The local car dealership here, Coastal Hyundai, they wanted to get us a rental car to drive out there, because I had a pickup truck, but not the 4 full doors. And then my wife's car at the time wasn't really reliable enough to make it out there. So they asked us what kind of vehicle would be great. I said something he could lay down in, like a minivan. We could take a seat out and he could lay down. And man, they got us the Mac Daddy loaded up Suburban. And you lay all the seats down, you got this entire thing. So we actually made him, I brought like 10 or 12 comforters, and we made this whole bed thing for him. And when he didn't want to lay down, he could sit up in the chair. And he absolutely was thankful for it, because at this point, the cancer would just pop up. So you could watch a commercial, and now he's got a new pain because the cancer changed to his knee, or started growing in his lip or his earlobe. Like, it just started spreading like this mutant thing that had no respect or care for anything other than doing what it wanted to do. So we get this Suburban all set up, and I get a phone call. Hey, Shane, this is Adam. And we're in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, and we'd like you to come out, and if Gaige is up to, would like to come out and be on set with us for a day. And I was like, yeah, we're on our way to Texas now. Yeah, instead of making a hard left, I could just go up for 2 hours or an hour and a half and have my son meet Adam Sandler. So we get to Savannah the night before, or the day before, and I walk up and I said, yeah, Shane, here to check in. He goes, oh, your room's not ready, but Mr. Sandler has done everything he could to make you guys feel comfortable. I was like, what? So they finally bring us back, and we go into this room, and Dave, if on Facebook, you'll see it's a metal, or I'm sorry, it's a piece of slate tray thing, and it's got chocolate and strawberries, and welcome to Savannah, whatever it said on that, or welcome Gaige. And funny part is, Gaige didn't like chocolate, doesn't like whipped cream, doesn't like strawberries. My wife was like, this is pretty good for me. So we were sitting there, and I was like, Gaige, what do you want to do? And he's like, man, I want to go walk. I want to go walk this town. And Savannah, for anybody that's never been there, is just an old, beautiful, these huge oak trees everywhere. It's just a gorgeous place. So we're walking, and we only made it maybe half a block. And he's like, Dad, I'm sorry, I can't, dude. He's like, I'm hurting too bad. I was like, no big deal. Let's go back. So we go into the restaurant inside the hotel, and we have dinner. And I said, Gaige, we're going to have a big day tomorrow. Let's go to bed early. He's like, okay. So Christa, Gaige, and Kaylee decided to stay home. She wanted Gaige to have this moment for him and not be a distraction. So that's why Kaylee wasn't there. So we go and lay down, and this guy next door, his TV was loud. I could hear him talking on the phone constantly all night long. I'm like, man, this not great. Well, we wake up in the morning, and I get a phone call, and it's Adam's handler, Judith. She's like, hey, I'm down at the restaurant. Come down. Adam wants to make sure you guys have a good breakfast today. I'm like, all right. So get Gaige up and Christa up. We go down. We have this great little meal. And she's like, all right, you guys ready to go down and see the set? And Gaige, I mean, there was a pep in this boy's step like you wouldn't believe. The day before, he couldn't make it a block, even a half a block. Today, he's heading for the van. Like, I mean, I guess the easiest way to kidnap Gaige was to put him in a white van, tell him Adam Sandler he was going to go see Adam Sandler, because he jumped in a stranger's van like there was no big deal. And Christa and I got in there, and Judith was like, hey, I'll meet you guys down there. And so she's like, I'm right behind you. And I'm like, what is this? And she goes, oh, it's just the van that they pick up from all the actors and stuff from the hotel here. So apparently all the actors for that show, or for that movie, were in this hotel. So, of course, I'm like, man, I wonder, of course, I'm thinking the woman that looks just like my second wife, Jennifer Aniston, I'm thinking she's there. And you're supposed to ask me, Dave, how many times you've been married?
Oh, how many times have you been married?
Just once. But she looks just like my second wife.
I know
Anyways, so now I'm kind of got like a little pep in my step, I'm like, Christa, who do you think's going to be there? And she's like, I don't know. We had no idea what movie it was. Nothing. Okay. So we walk in to this room, and there are just tables with, folding tables with tablecloths. So they're lined up one after another. And she's like, hey, you guys have a seat. Everybody will be here. And I'm telling you, dude, everybody walked in that room no different, Dave, than if you were to walk into a room at work with all your coworkers. Like, just another day. Of course, the peon people, which I call the little people, Gaige, myself, and Christa are sitting there just like, oh my God, there's that person. That's that person. Blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, everybody just comes and sits down at the table we're sitting at. I scratched that. Shane, as people start walking in, are like, I really have to go to the restroom. I'll be right back. So I leave. I come back. Gaige and Christa are in full-on conversation with Adam Sandler, Nick Swanson, David Spade, Luz Guzman. Like, everybody is just sitting around the table, and they're all just laughing at Gaige. Like, Gaige is whipping.
Grown-ups too?
No. I'll tell you in a second, because it just, it doesn't, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Anyways, so we go in to the should say we give Adam Sandler and everyone on set, all the actors or what have you, we give them a support shirt. And Gaige gives David Spade, who is a little feller, gives him an infant t-shirt that's just a little tiny shirt. And Gaige goes, I hope it's not too big on you.
Is it Big Man in a little coat?
No. Oh, no.
Tommy boy.
No. Oh, no, you're not going to guess it. But, so, David Spade is holding up this infant support shirt, and Adam is freaking rolling. He's like, that's the funniest thing right there. And David Spade, she was kind of annoyed by it, like, yes, I know I'm little, but, you don't have to make fun of me. Anyways, so we all get up, and we're walking, and Adam and Gaige are they're just engaged, like in conversation. And he goes, oh yeah, by the way, we just had lunch. If you guys want anything, it was Boston Market or what. They just had everything catered in. Everything just came in, and whenever you want to eat, you just eat. Whenever you want to drink, you just drink. Like everything is there. And Gaige is like, wow, I don't know what happened on this day. My son grabs a pickle, and he's eating a pickle, and he's like, oh, you got ice cream. And then Adam just started going, Gaige likes pickles and ice cream. Are you pregnant, Gaige? Like, and everyone's laughing, and Gaige is having fun. And we go up on set, and we walk into this room, which turns into a bedroom. From outside, it's just some wood walls, and you walk in, it's a full-on bedroom. And Adam turns and goes, I'd like to go ahead and apologize to the parents of Gaige. Today's scene is going to have some risky stuff in it. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, not everybody can be in this room for the next scene. So there was some nudity in this next scene. And I was like, oh, okay. He goes, but you can go out here and watch it all on the monitors. And when I say monitors, there are like monitors every camera angle you can imagine. And so we go out there, and Adam gives Gaige his producer seat, or his, not producer seat, but the stars chair,
seat.
The stars chair, or whatever, and gives him his headphones and tells Gaige, yell action. And Gaige yells action, and scene starts. And I'm like, holy crap. And my son is full on headphones, looking at the screen, paying attention to things. And at the end, Adam yells cut, or whoever yells cut. And Adam goes, what do you think about that scene? My son goes, now, see, the shadow right here looks like this, and blah, blah, blah. And Adam goes, oh, you're right. Do it again. I am over here grabbing him by the neck going, shut up. Like, I don't know how many dollars that cost to make that scene. Just that one that you're having them redo because you noticed some shadow. Shut up. Like, my kid is full-blown thrown into, I'm a producer now. Like, just instantly. And I'm realizing that this is my son's dream. And I was just like, you know what? I'd cross my arms, sat back, and just watch him smile the entire time. Then Christa, Gaige asked for a drink or something. Christa went to open up a soda bottle, and she's kind of spilled it on his jeans, on Gaige's jeans. And Gaige is like, whoa, Mom, be careful. Adam's like, someone get Gaige a napkin. Someone get Gaige a napkin. No one moved quick enough. Adam jumps up, runs out of the room, comes back with napkins and gives it to Gaige. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, and then Gaige disappears with Jonathan, and Jonathan's the one that during the movie sometimes makes his eye go crooked or whatever. So Christa and I are sitting there, and we're like, so where's my son? Oh, he's hanging out with Jonathan in Adam Sandler's trailer with this dog, Meatball. I'm like, my son is in whose trailer? Doing what? Adam's just like, oh yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, I'm going to go back up on set. You guys have fun. Just left Gaige in there in his trailer. Now, meantime, Christa and Adam's wife, Jackie, are on full. Like, I thought they were shopping the next day. Like, they were just talking the whole time. These are normal people we put on this pedestal as if they're untouchable or unable to be talked to. My wife, who's the shyest person in the world until you get to know her, and then she's annoying. She and her and Jackie were just straight having a conversation off to the side, talking about shopping and kids and this and that, blah, blah. I'm like, holy crap. So, Gaige is, we've been there 8 hours all day long. And Gaige, I can just see, is uncomfortable. He's starting to get pains. And I said, hey, Adam, I said, we're going to have to go. Like, I don't want to cut this short for my son, but he's dying. He's in so much pain, but he doesn't want to leave. And he's like, no, I get it. He's like, you guys want to come back tomorrow? I said, we can't. We have to be in Texas at this time. So we can't cut that option short. So he's like, oh, okay, no big deal. Well, we go back to the hotel room. And as I'm sitting there talking to Gaige and we're just having like a reminiscent of the day, I hear this TV come on next door. I hear conversations on the phone through the walls. And I'm like, who is this person on the other side of the wall? So we walk out to the courtyard and I can see our hotel room door and the neighbor's door. It was Nick Swanson. He's in there doing like his, he wasn't on the phone. He was doing his scenes for the next day, but he had to have the TV up loud so no one could hear the scenes. Or I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh man, he's like, this is how I got to do this. Cause if not, I'm like, but you keep everybody else up, bro. How about some headphones? And he's like, no. He's like, I got to do it this way. So I was like, well, I'm going to go to the bar to get a beer. Do you want a beer? And he's like, no, I got to get to bed early because I do have to get up early. I have to be on set at 6, not show up, but be on. I was like, okay. So it's like a real job. Okay, cool. Not just show up, everybody, like it's all planned. I never put any kind of thought process to it. So the next morning we load Gaige up in the Suburban and we head out. We're in, wow, man, I don't even know. There was a whole lot of water. We were on bridges that didn't see land for a while on I-10 going west.
Probably Louisiana.
Yeah, something like that. And
Yeah.
Adam calls Gaige. And he's like, hey,
Sandler's now stalking your family.
Yeah.
You realize it.
Yeah. Okay, it gets worse. And by worse,
Okay.
I mean, makes him just a great guy. I forgot to tell you, Dave, while we were there, Gaige asked Adam, oh yeah, I like this movie when you played Little Nicky. Dude went into character of Little Nicky. Boom. Then Gaige is like, oh yeah, this scene with Waterboy goes into Waterboy character instantly. The cartoon, the Christmas one that he's got, he hits every one of those characters in just boom, 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 boom. And you hear it and you're just like, dude, that's the source it came from. Like from the movie, you know what I mean? Like it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense because you're just listening to him change characters instantly and he's totally that character. So Gaige gets this phone call from Adam and Adam's like, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm just laying here while my dad is taking me to Texas or whatever. And then Adam's like, well, did he stop and get you any lunch? And Gaige is like, not yet. We're going to. He's like, and Gaige asks him, he goes, did you have lunch? He goes, oh yeah, I had KFC. And Gaige goes, don't you mean Popeyes? Like in Little Nicky's voice. And then the rest of the conversation, like a 10-minute conversation with Adam Sandler, was in Little Nicky voice talking to my son the entire time. It was so flippin' amazing. So we get to Texas. We get set up with MD Anderson. We get set up with a hotel. And dude, we kept this GoFundMe thing going, but only as we needed it. So about every 10 days, we were spending about $1,400 in Houston, Texas for a hotel room, which was not in a great part of town, was not a safe hotel. But that was the cheapest we could find. So as we needed it, we would ask for money. And we did that leapfrogging all the way up until the very end. We didn't just say, hey, we need $100,000. No, we just asked for what was needed at the time. And we ended up getting up, I think we raised a little more than $33,000 in the 10 months. But I mean, it was crazy. So we ended up staying at the Ronald McDonald House. We ended up getting out of this hotel and getting to the Ronald McDonald House, which was a block and a half from the hospital. So Gaige is now doing radiation and chemo at the hospital. And he's now not able to walk. His last time walking was he stepped into a bathtub to take a little bath. And my wife had to pull him out because the cancer just grew and he couldn't walk anymore. Like at that moment, done. So my wife called me and said, because I was actually at home, and she said, you have to come back. He can't walk anymore. So they ended up, by the time I got there, he was already at the hospital, and that was it. He never walked again. And he went through all these treatments, did all this stuff. He made little notes for the nurses. You know, thanks for taking care of me. Sorry you had to wipe my butt. You know, like all this stuff, like just little notes and stuff, just make people smile. And then he had this dry eraser board that, because he had the tube down his throat, he could no longer talk or couldn't breathe on his own. The cancer had swollen so much that they had to put the tube in to keep oxygen flowing. Well, it's the middle of the night, and the nurse comes in and they start doing the suction thing on his trach tube, and they pull out this large chunk of something. And the lady kind of picks it up and rolls it up and carries it away. And next morning, doctor comes in, and I was like, good, I need to talk to you. He goes, yeah, we got to talk to you too. Come into this little room. And I was like, oh yeah, we're going into this little room. We're going to have a conversation. You know, in my head, I need to find out what's going on, what this lady just pulled out on my kid's tube. Like, what is going on? So we go in this room, and he's like, well, we've done this treatment. He's had this and that. And I'm like, doc, just spit it out, dude. What's up? He's like, yeah, the cancer is growing so fast that it is actually growing to the end of the tube that is in his lungs. And at some point is going to, when Gaige goes to exhale, is going to clog off the end of the tube that's in his lungs. And because they almost didn't get this tube in his throat. It swelled up so much. And there was no way of pulling it out and putting one back in because it just wasn't going to work. And they said his lungs are filling with fluids. The cancer had torn into his lungs. And just, I mean, he was fully awake and aware of everything. And, you know, it was just the pain meds. We would sit there. They had him on this, for the longest time, they had him on a pump. And if the light turned green, you could hit the pump and it would give him some pain meds. But the problem is he would be asleep, wake up from the pain. And the time he pushed that button and the pain meds would take effect, he was already in pain again. So it was like this, or he was asleep again. So it was like this thing. So Krista and I just sat there the whole time. Every time that light turned green, we just pushed the button. Just kept hitting that button. Like all day. That's all we did, is push that button just to keep him comfortable. So the doctors pretty much told us that was the end of Gaige. And I said, all right. I said, I'm going to go be with my son. I want him taken off the pain meds so we can have a conversation so he knows what's going on. So we go in, and now I would do this to him every morning. I'd take him off his pain meds, and when he wake up, I'd make him do arm exercises and stuff to, keep blood flowing. And that's what the doctors told us to do. So that's what I would do. So he woke up, realized it was morning, started pumping his arms, and I put my hands over his hands and said, son, you'll have to do that no more. We went in and like everything, told him that this treatment didn't work, this cancer treatment didn't work, this didn't work. And the kid was just like, cool. This time, I explained to him that his lungs were going to fill with fluid and he's going to pass. And he looked at me, gave me the thumbs up, gave me the, give me a gun. Like he's just like, dude, give me a gun. I'll put it in my head now. Like I'm done too. Like I'm sorry, but I'm done. And I explained to him that they were going to come in and sedate him, lower the oxygen level, and he's just going to pass without even knowing it. And he wrote on the dry erasure board, cool. The nurse came in. He's like, let me ask this guy to pass now. Like he was done. And it sounds really quick, really fast, but it made it easier on us as parents that he was ready to go, if that makes sense. So they came in and we said bye to him. He mouthed, he loved everybody. I called Adam Sandler and said, hey, they're letting Gaige go. He's like, Gaige, I love you. I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. I was like, Adam, I got to go. Click. And then they started the sedation. And within less than 20 minutes, he was gone. It was quick. And months and months and months later, the movie that we were on set with Gaige and Adam was the movie called The Do-Over, and it was about cancer. And I don't know if you know that or not, but that was the movie called The Do-Over.
I bet Gaige was there for the purpose of inspiring them in a way that he didn't even know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we had no idea it was about cancer, that movie, until we watched it. And it wasn't until 3/4 of the way through, or a quarter of the way through the movie, you find out he has cancer. I didn't know that.
Well, obviously, what year did this happen?
He passed August 24th, 2015.
15. So 14 through 15. Clearly the worst year of yours and Christa's life. I think there's a lot of questions that I'm sure that we want to know, why was this not detected during blood work, that there was cancer? What happened to the other two families? How did they handle that, the people from
his platoon?
Gaige in the military.
Yeah.
Okay. What did those families do? How did that turn out for them? And those kind of questions, I guess, interesting to know, but yet a little bit trivial now considering. I think the lesson, or the thing to think about is this. There's two ways you can lose somebody. One is quick and one is slowly. And what's better? I don't know. I mean, you had mentioned about not being there for Gaige in your mind and having regret about not being there when he shaved his head. But yet look at all the stuff that you and Christa had the opportunity to do for him, to give him such joy, the skydiving, this experience, and not just experience, but this isn't like a quick make-a-wish one and done and you're out. He developed a friendship with Adam Sandler, and Adam Sandler is never, ever going to forget him. He won't be able to forget him. I know that. In the case of my mother, it was, you don't even have time to say goodbye. It's just one day, your child is gone. And I can't imagine that pain. I mean, even when I try to imagine that pain, I kind of say, oh, I'm not going there. Hell with that. That's the sickest feeling in the world. And so it shows how strong you and Chris are as parents, and that you are willing to do anything it takes for the happiness of your child. So let's wrap up by talking about what you have done to remember Gaige and to keep his memory alive.
Well, we started a couple years ago. Actually, one of the teachers from the middle school that he went to never had him as a student, as a student, but always realized what a great kid he was and how he was helpful. This guy started a scholarship in my son's name. It's called the Gaige Robbins Good Citizenship. I'm trying to think. It's in Gaige Robbins Good Citizenship. What is it called? Scholarship. Sorry. He started that a couple years ago and was asking money for, donations, what have you. And we got all the money, most of it through the PPG community. And then we decided to take it over and start raising some serious money. And this year, thanks to Bad Apples, they donated over $5,000, or they donated $5,000 in to Gaige's scholarship. And then we had a fly-in this year. It's called Fly It for Gaige. It's in Florida, in Bowling Green, Florida. And we are in the works right now of making a second annual Fly It for Gaige. But the first one we raised right at $5,000. So we had raised $10,000 between the two events. So we are going from one $500 scholarship to two $1,000 scholarships at two different schools. One from Hardy Lakes, the county that we had the fly-in at, and then the high school that my son graduated from. So we're going to be able to keep his name alive by adding each year a $1,000 scholarship to the two schools.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Shane. What last question I want to ask you is, what advice can you give to a parent who finds themselves in a situation where they just lost their child?
Nothing that is going to change anything for how you feel. There's nothing you can say. Someone dies and you go to their loved ones and you're sorry for your loss. And I'm not trying to be rude by this. I don't mean it to be rude. There's nothing you can say that's going to fill any of that void. So when I heard that, I will tell you that with Gaige's following, when we had his celebration for life, we had to have it at an auditorium that had over 800 seats and a fire marshal that was getting ready to shut the doors until no one else can come in. He had over 800 people show up wearing lime green, whether it be shirt, socks, hat, to show his support for his cancer or his fight with cancer. And I think there was over 2,000 people that was watching that live stream, all for this 19-year-old kid. So what I can tell you as a parent that loses a child, it's some days are better than others. For me, I don't ever want to be alone, to be honest with you. If I'm alone, I have time to think, and it's bad. So I'm always with somebody, whether it's my wife, my friends, or whatever. It's always with somebody. So find yourself with loved ones and just live day by day. With some days, birthdays come around. It's not just the day that he passed. You got Christmas, holidays, birthdays, everything. It's not just one day. It's every day.
Always remember. Always remember. If someone wants to make a donation to Gaige's fund, how can they do so?
I don't have anything set up. We only had we didn't have anything set up for this as of right now, because I wasn't planning on. Dave's looking at me like, "Are you crazy?" We only set it up to do for the paying of the pilot's fees. I guess if you want to Zelle my super long YouTube name, which is Never Trust a Skinny Chef Shane at Gmail. Let me double check that.
Yeah, we can put that out there. Yeah, look, if you want to make a donation, and I know you've had people come up to you and say, hey, use this money as you see fit, and you said, I'm going to use it towards
what it's
this
supposed
scholarship.
to be. Yeah.
And so you can do that. And I'm sure at some point you'll have something set up too as this continues to grow.
Hey.
Listen, I want to thank you so much.
Yeah, Dave,
I really
thank
do.
you.
Easy thing to talk about. And I appreciate you and Christa and your hearts. And I'm putting it out there. And hopefully this message reaches someone and helps somebody, and continue to keep his legacy and his love of life alive, which is great.
I greatly appreciate it.
Full of, as I said, heavy episodes here on Beyond the Summit. Next week we've got Ava Geller. Ava Geller is a D1 athlete, Division I athlete at the University of Cincinnati playing lacrosse. It's tough. It's tough to get to that level. She's going to talk about how she has gone beyond her own summits and made it to that level, and kind of give people out there who have kids that want to play Division I sports what they can do to get themselves lined up. So there's that. Again, thank you, Shane, Robinson, Christa, for sharing the story. I didn't know any of this, and it was good to hear it. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the listeners for listening to this week's episode of Beyond the Summit. You'll hear us, or we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.